So I would like to introduce everyone to Brandon Bonilla. He's a recent Pace University graduate. He was on the brand marketing team involved in Pace Ad Club, which we'll talk a lot more about all of his experiences at Pace. But right now he's a marketing supervisor or
Specialist.
marketing specialist at EmblemHealth. So if anyone has any questions for him while we're going through this interview, you can put them in the chat, and Nicole will be looking at that to see who has questions, and we'll have them answered at the end of the interview. But with that, I'm just gonna get started so we can learn more about Brandon and how he ended up getting a job in marketing in the middle of a pandemic. So with that, Brandon, where are you from?
So I'm originally from Jackson, New Jersey, so kind of right smack dab in the center of New Jersey. And growing up, kind of like New York was the city that I always visited, so that's kind of why I gravitated towards the city, and I guess why I ended up wanting to go to school in the city and getting a job in the city. But yeah, originally from Central Jersey.
Cool. We have a lot of people from Central Jersey.
I'm good.
Yeah. So why did you choose marketing at Pace?
So I think originally it's kind of a weird story that I didn't want to go into marketing. In high school, I was actually part of like the Digital Media Academy there, which is like a mix of their graphic design program and their film production program all in one. So originally that's what I wanted to go into, was like graphic design or film production. I even toured colleges with that intention. So I was like going down that route. But at some point I realized or had this thought that I didn't think I was good enough at graphic design that I could have like a full-blown career in it and or make enough money to live the life that I wanted to live, if that makes sense. Now, of course, there's, exceptions to the rule and there's other people that can do that, but I just didn't see that for myself. So I kind of transitioned away from that and was looking for something that kind of combined a creative aspect that I liked from the whole graphic design, film, and stuff like that, and combine it with kind of this business entrepreneurial mindset thing that I had going on in high school that I kind of enjoyed with the different classes I took. Like there was a personal finance and like a intro to business class that we took. So kind of looking at fields that bridge that gap, and I felt like marketing was kind of that one that bridged creativity and business. Even though I didn't really know what it was at the time, it was something I was willing to explore more and I thought I could fit into more. So I started looking for schools, mainly in like big cities. So I was looking at Boston, Philadelphia, and then of course New York. Um, and when it came down to it, there was like basically three schools in New York that I was going, like basically going to choose from for marketing. It was going to be NYU, Fordham, or Pace. NYU waitlisted me. Fordham was too expensive and they wouldn't give me more money after I asked. And Pace was
Yep.
expensive, but they gave me more money than Fordham. So that's ultimately why I ended up at Pace. And it was ultimately like the best decision I could have made. I don't think I would have been as successful at any other school. I think if I went to Fordham, I just wouldn't have gotten the same experience that I got, or the same culture, I guess, that's at Pace. And kind of the same situation with NYU. It's such a big school that you can feel like a small fish in a whole sea of different people. So I think Pace was definitely the right decision for why I like ended up choosing marketing and going there. Yeah.
Definitely. So based on your experiences that you've had at Pace since you decided to come to Pace, we'll talk about what shaped your vision for your career. So were there any classes that you had that you really enjoyed and made you think ooh, this is something I might want to do?
Yeah. So I think it took me a while to get into the marketing classes. I can't remember if I took my first one the second semester freshman year, or if it was first semester sophomore year. It was so long ago, but I don't think even before my first internship that I had any marketing classes, which was definitely a little hard because I didn't know what I really wanted to do. So I kind of relied on that graphic design background, and that's kind of when I got to Pace. I joined the ad club. By the end of my freshman year, I had become the creative director there. So it was still kind of relying on those graphic design roots, even though I wanted to get away from that. So I wasn't really sure what area of marketing I wanted to go into until maybe sophomore, junior year, after doing a couple internships. But then your question about classes, I think there were three classes that kind of really shaped what I wanted to do, and those were media planning and buying, ad and promo with Dr. C, and of course, brand marketing team. I think those three classes, for what I wanted to do, if you're into like the more market research side of things, obviously market research would be a good class. But for what I wanted to do, which was kind of like brand strategy and then just media strategy and execution and stuff like that, those three classes, and brand marketing team, I guess it was a class or a team, whatever way you want to view it, were the most applicable in the real world. And I can say that even through my experience in internships, like those classes had direct relevance to those internships too, because in the real world, even now, I sit through strategy presentations that are very similar to the ones I presented in media planning and buying, ad and promo and brand marketing team. So because there was that much crossover between the two, those to me are the most relevant classes. And I know that some of you guys might be like A&E majors and it's not required to take like media planning and buying. But I think even if you're in that world, it's still a good idea to take it as an elective maybe. I know people that, I think, Brenna, you're doing it now.
Yeah, I took ad and promo as an elective. It like counts towards my arts entertainment management major.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Exactly.
Definitely.
I know like communication majors, some have also taken those classes too, and it's just helped them just to give like context of the field you're going into, and kind of narrow your scope in terms of what you're trying to go into after you graduate. Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to go into a little bit more detail about like your leadership positions in Ad Club or any internships you did during your time at Pace?
Yeah. So over the 4 years that I was at Pace, I held two leadership, well, technically three, I guess, three leadership positions. So the two were in Ad Club. So like I said, I was first a creative director, and that was just because I had the graphic design background and they were looking for somebody to kind of help them out at the end of my freshman year. So I was kind of the creative director until the end of my sophomore year, where I luckily became the president of Ad Club for a little brief stint in the fall. So those two things I think are great, especially if you don't necessarily have internships or you're not sure what you want to do yet. Because I think no matter what internship you go for, no matter what area of marketing you're going into or whatever it may be, managing a group of people is like a big necessity. And I think every interview I've ever been on, they've always asked about managing different personalities or dealing with different personalities or how you work in a group, or when another group member is trying like being overbearing, or just how to deal with groups in general. So if you don't necessarily have internships, but you want to get some experience, those leadership roles are definitely like a good idea. Even if you don't want to be a president, like I don't think I necessarily wanted to be a president. The opportunity just kind of presented itself. But even being like a creative director and interacting with a bigger team rather than being a general member, I think is a good idea. Outside of those two leadership positions, when I was on brand marketing team, because of like the internship experiences I had and the fall semester for brand marketing team, I ended up becoming the head of the media department, which I think was like kind of one of the most formative leadership experiences I had, just because it was I mean, it was more stress, but it was like more responsibility in terms of, or I don't even know how to put it, more responsibility than Ad Club in a sense, if that makes sense. I was managing more people than I was on Ad Club, and kind of not the repercussions, but like, yeah, there was more responsibility when I was on that part of the team. So again, that plays into the whole thing of like managing a group of people, managing personalities, and making sure everyone's voice is heard, and also yours, and not losing your own voice and all that. And that definitely helped in the interview process when I was interviewing for this job and other jobs. Outside of those clubs and brand marketing team, I held 3 internships over the 4 years. Two of them were unpaid. One of them I paid Pace to do, and I guess I'll go into those. So the first one was at the end of my freshman year, had no marketing classes, no previous marketing experience. I found a small company in New Jersey called Destination Athlete. They're basically like a sports team sales, like, how do I put it? Like team apparel and team equipment. Like we were making their custom stuff. And because again, I had the graphic design background, even though I applied for a marketing role, I fell into more of a graphic designer role there. So I created all their sales collateral, some logos for the different equipment, and like uniforms that they were wearing. Basically anything and everything that they needed, I would create over that summer. So that was my first internship. It was unpaid. They did pay, like give a travel stipend, which was nice because I drove an hour and a half one way just to get to the office. But it was kind of one of those moments where I just was like, okay, this is like very temporary and it's an investment in myself. And even though it sucked, I still like stuck it out and finished the internship, which
Mhm.
ended up benefiting me in the long run because just to go on a little side note here, like um, at the end of this internship, they offered me a freelance position, which was great because the entire summer I was also working part-time at Walgreens. So I was working 7 days a week, which was brutal and not fun. So at the end of the internship, when they offered me the freelance position, I was able to drop the Walgreens thing, go to school, have these flexible hours with work that was able to fund like my college life, and also be
Mhm.
able to like intern and do whatever I want basically. So I was very lucky in that sense. So when I'm telling like my story here, I just want people to understand that like I had a very flexible job that paid me a couple like $100 a month that allowed me to do what I wanted. And I know some people's situations might be different. So that's just my particular situation with the whole freelancing and everything like that. But so yeah, at the end of that internship, which was a graphic design based thing, I got the freelance role. And then I think I took a good amount of time off before I went into another internship. I think I didn't get another one that I would have entered sophomore year. I didn't get another one until freshman of junior, or not freshman, first semester of junior year. And that internship was at Atlantic Records. There, I worked in their urban marketing department. So it was basically their hip hop, R&B, rap artists. So people like Cardi B, Janelle Monáe, Nipsey Hussle back then, and like Meek Mill. So those are all the people that I kind of like. I worked under their product managers, which is basically how I like to put it is like an event marketing type of thing that I was in. I didn't know that going into it, but that's what it turned out to be. And I did
Mhm.
do a little graphic design work here and there, but yeah, it was more like when they were releasing an album, what's like the big thing that we're gonna do, and then on their end, we would kind of like project coordinate how that would all get put together. That internship, I don't think I learned a lot about marketing, but I learned a lot about myself. And I want to reiterate that like not every internship you'll have is perfect. If you find the perfect internship on your first one, I think you're extremely lucky. I
Mhm.
don't think I ever found the perfect internship, to be honest. Um, and I think all of them helped me figure out what I wanted to do in life. But I think it's okay, and I don't want anybody to be worried if you don't necessarily find something that you like, because with all three internships that I did, I didn't necessarily enjoy 100%. But getting back into that one, yeah, I didn't really learn anything about marketing per se. I did learn a lot about myself. So in that internship, it was extremely like high stress, as you can imagine, working with a bunch of celebrities. Um, I learned like how to manage high stress things, how to multitask, and I think above everything else was I built a lot of confidence in myself. Like there's something about like running down Times Square with like $400 worth of food in your hand when it's pouring outside that like builds a mental toughness in you. And even though like that's not the internship experience nobody really wants, I think it built again like that confidence in me that allowed me to go into different roles, like my internship after that the next summer, and then even like going into brand marketing team. It like I was confident in the fact that I knew I could do it, just because I had gone through that whole experience. I was like nothing could be worse than this type of thing. So again, like not the best experience in the world, but I think I grew a lot as a person, which was great in my opinion.
Mhm.
So after that internship in that fall of junior year, I definitely took the next semester off. I needed a break after that. But I went into the summer looking for an internship that like I wanted to enjoy or at least learn a lot from. Because my first
Mhm.
one was graphic design. Realized that I really didn't want to be on the creative side of marketing. After that, again, I went into like kind of like an event coordinator type of thing. Not really, but like some weird role there. And I realized that like I didn't like entertainment or the music industry a lot. Like just that high stress environment was not for me. And not every record label is like that. But that's just kind of the vibe that I got. So I knew that that wasn't for me. So after that, I figured I wanted to go into more like the data side of marketing or data driven insights or strategy or somewhere like that. And actually, a mutual connection through Ad Club told me about Starcom. Starcom Media Vest Group is like a media agency in New York, obviously. So I applied there, got the position, and I ended up being on their strategy team for their Samsung client, specifically like the home appliance and consumer electronics side of things. So like smart TVs, gaming monitors, and kind of like randomly thrown in there is like refrigerators and like dishwashers and stuff like that. So like all these like smart products that they have going on. So I was on the strategy side. So basically, I got exposure to all the different marketing channels that you guys will learn about as you go throughout your classes and stuff like that. The most I can like attribute this internship to is like media planning and buying. So like I was taking that class kind of, I think I took it before I took this. So it kind of helped me out a little bit in this internship, understanding a bit of the acronyms and stuff like that. Um, but I learned a ton through this internship, and I recommend if you can to try and do, if you're into the media world, to try and get an agency internship, just because I got exposure to, again, every different channel, um, at least on the strategy side. So every different channel, where the money goes, all the different tactics. It was a big overview essentially that I got for an entire summer. And even though I didn't necessarily like, it's a big team, as you can imagine, on Samsung. So like as an intern, you can kind of get lost or put to the wayside sometimes. So even though that
Mhm.
happened and I had, quite a few like boring days, I will say that I came out of that knowing a lot. And I think that combined with my previous experiences, like gave me a lot of confidence going into brand marketing team that fall, knowing that like I would probably be like the number one go-to for like media stuff. And it gave me confidence to like actually like ask to be like the media lead, the head of the media department and stuff like that. So yeah, those were my three internships over the time. The last one was paid. So at Starcom they paid me, but like I said, the other two were unpaid. I got a travel stipend at the first one, and the second one they didn't pay me at all. I had to get the internship for credit, and it had to be at least one credit. So I had to pay Pace $1,300 to do the internship.
Yep.
So again, I had to go into that mindset that like this is an investment in myself type of thing. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that like today, that investment definitely paid off in terms of like the amount I'm getting paid now. So there are those moments where you kind of just have to like suck it up and be like, okay, this is as the situation is now, like the companies still do it, which sucks, but it's kind of like, again, you have to invest in yourself, and hopefully in the end it'll pay off like it did for me.
Yeah, definitely. So with all that being said about like how you experience PACE and like all of your different opportunities through PACE, what was the interview process like for coming out of PACE, having graduated, like going into the real world? Like, did you use these experiences in your interviews? Like, did you talk about it all? Like, how was all of that?
Sure. So I think for me, I can tell you the different stages. So the first internship that I had, I didn't have any marketing experience, or I didn't even have any classes to talk about. So it was very hard to like convince people that I would be a good hire. But this company was willing to take a chance on me. They gave me an interview. And basically I talked a lot about, again, that graphic design background that I had. I knew that that was the one skill that I could leverage at the time. And again, I got involved as fast as I could in Ad Club. So they knew that I was at least, interested in marketing and was willing to put more effort in than the usual person. And I had become the creative director by the time I was interviewing. So I was able to speak about that. And I guess that's why they put me more in a graphic design role. But I think at first, if you don't have any classes or anything like that under your belt, leveraging the skills that you already have is definitely the move to do. Just because it isn't a part of a class and it just might be a side hobby like it was for me doesn't mean it's applicable to the employer. It ended up getting me, obviously the internship and then the job afterwards. So definitely leverage skills that you have maybe from high school or just hobbies that you have that you're interested in. Um, After the fact, like after that internship, obviously I'm able to use that experience, but I wanted to transition into less of a creative role. So I talked about that internship experience, but like I was also trying to branch out. So that was definitely harder to do because I didn't, again, have internships that were in those different areas. So that's when I started using different classes as I like put them on my resume. So I know basically in every marketing class, you essentially have a bunch of group projects or at least one big term project where you work again like in these big teams or smaller teams, and you have to come up with like big strategy presentations for like sometimes they're fictional companies, sometimes they're real companies. So I definitely utilized those a lot throughout like interviewing for internships, was talking about these projects and working on teams. Because at the end of the day, these employers, if they're like decent people and know college experiences, they know that you're obviously don't have any work experience and your kind of like only experience is these group projects. So
Mhm.
being able to talk about those a lot is definitely a good thing. So definitely don't take those lightly when you're doing them. Cause like if you're able to show or at least go through these presentations with these people, like actually go through the PowerPoints, they appreciate it. And it shows that like you put in a lot of work and effort. And alongside that, you're able to work in groups well. Because obviously a lot of these companies work in teams. So that's another thing. Then kind of like moving on after you like do all these projects and get more internships under your belt, they kind of go hand in hand and you're able to talk about them more. So by the time I graduated, obviously I had the 3 internships that I could talk about. They ended up wanting to know about the Starcom one the most, obviously, because I was trying to get into media. And then I was also able to talk about brand marketing team a lot on my resume. But again, a lot of the questions that they ask are about teams and like how you work in teams, how you deal with different personalities. I mean, I work in health insurance now, and like you wouldn't think that there's a lot of like, I don't know, big personalities in health insurance. It seems kind of boring, but you'd be surprised. Like a lot of the people that are higher ups have big personalities, and your bosses will have big personalities. So it's definitely like a thing that you have to deal with, and a relevant topic in interviews. So that was definitely like, I guess now, like once having interviewed over the summer and stuff like that, a lot of the questions, well, I was able to talk about, all these different experiences. A lot of the questions revolve around working in teams and stuff like that.
How many interviews would you say you went through this summer before
Um,
finding the position you're in now?
yeah.
Just to like give
So I,
people an idea of what it's like right now.
so obviously the situation is getting a little bit better. And I
Mhm.
know more friends of mine now are getting more interviews, but back then I started applying for full-time roles like February 1st. The pandemic hit in March, mid-March, and I probably applied to, stopped keeping track of the amount of places I applied to. That's how many I applied to. And the reality was I just wasn't hearing back from anybody. I
Mhm.
didn't start getting interviews until maybe May or June, and maybe some like sprinkled in between, but it wasn't a lot, like maybe like total 6 or 7. And out of those 6 or 7, maybe 3 or 4 made it to like final rounds. Um,
Okay.
and out of those 3 or 4, 2 I think ended up pausing on me at the end after I'd gotten through the entire thing. They said, "Sorry, we paused hiring because of the pandemic." Um, and then this one was basically the one that was like, I got lucky essentially in the sense that they were like, "We've been hiring remotely since March. We're very comfortable with like onboarding during this whole thing." They've been working from home since then, so they understand they can operate like that. So luckily I found a company that was very comfortable with it. And I think that's what other companies are reaching now, as a point of like comfortability with being able to operate remotely.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, luckily I found a company that was like, "No, we need to hire for this position like immediately." Um, and I guess I chose obviously the right industry to go after, because I was looking at health insurance, and obviously there's a huge health crisis going on in the world, so huge
Yeah.
demand. So they need people for the amount of work that they have going on. So I guess that was another thing that I happened to stumble upon, was like, because I don't know if I was getting desperate, but I was getting anxious that I didn't have a job. Um, I started looking at, different fields that would probably be more promising. Because originally I was looking at media or like digital marketing or programmatic marketing, which is like automated buying and selling of ads. So I was looking more in that area. And once I saw
Mhm.
that like all these agencies were pausing hiring, I mean, I talked to one guy on the phone and we went through a whole interview and he's like, yeah, I was just doing this to basically figure out who you are, but we're not hiring until November. So like
Wow.
there was a lot of that. So once I realized that like agencies weren't really hiring, I kind of shifted my mindset and was like, okay, let me look for a field that is actually hiring, which obviously the healthcare industry was hiring a lot, or health insurance in general, or just health. So that's kind of why I decided to apply to EmblemHealth. And then, yeah, they were eager to get the interview process kind of like done and over with because they wanted to hire so quickly. Um,
Mhm.
I know like a lot of my friends did not have that same situation. Also, a lot of people don't want to necessarily give in, I guess is the word, and settle for an industry that they don't necessarily want to be in. Because I can tell you, I did not think that I would be in health insurance when I graduated. Like I really wanted to be in digital marketing or an agency or even programmatic advertising. Um, but like it came down to it that like I was anxious to get a job and the job description they provided was very like compelling in the sense that I seemed like I could learn a lot. And it kind of went back into this other mindset that I had with the internships that it was going to be an investment in myself. And it took some time to like kind of come to this realization. I started like mid-August and now it's the end of September. But I think like it's important to realize that all of us are very young. Like I'm 22 and like I started my first job and it might not be my dream. It isn't my dream job, but like, and I might not like it every day, but I have a lot of time to change that. And they're paying me well, and it's not like overbearing work like I'm at Atlantic Records running down Times Square with food in my hand. So it's not that bad. Um, so I think knowing that like even you might settle for a job that might not be your dream job, you have a lot of time to change that. So I wouldn't get too caught up in that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like I went around in circles on that question, but I hope I
Do you
answered
want to
it.
talk more about like what you're doing now in your current position that you got?
Sure. Yeah. So they call it a marketing specialist role at Emblem Health. Essentially, the best way I can put it is basically like a project coordinator. So the way it works is different teams. So whether it be the brand team for Emblem Health or the sales team for our company, basically any other team besides the marketing team, or I guess it could be ourselves too, but any other team that has a request that they want to put through for different sales collateral or just different materials that they need. We have a project management system and it comes through and it gets assigned to me or somebody else on my team. And then from there, we basically have to move it through these different essentially different people. So we send it to design if it needs to be designed. We send it to the web development team if it's like a new web page that has to be created. Once we receive that back, we bring it back to the original requester and we're like, is this good? If they say it's good, we push it to, because we're in health insurance, there's a lot of like hoops to go through. So we have to push it through like legal compliance, and then like affected department review, a lot of reviews and approvals type of thing for our company. Um, but that's essentially what my job currently is like a project coordinator. They do have like kind of certain things that I'm getting thrown here and there. So like they're bringing on some SEO stuff that they kind of want me to be a part of. And then as things come up, I'll receive those too. But to give some background on kind of the health insurance world, like this is kind of like the most busiest month for the health insurance world, just because Medicare enrollment is coming up next month, and then open enrollment is the month after that. So we're kind of like getting all of our materials ready now. So of course I joined in the most busiest time of year, which is great. But yeah, that's essentially what I do at my role as of right now. There's a lot of different nuances and stuff like that, but essentially you like a project coordinator. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that like what you learned at Pace helped you like prepared you for this role, or like are you learning
Yeah, I
new things
think
every day, or both?
so. I think I'm definitely always learning new things on the job, obviously, just because it's a different world than I've ever been in. It's not media, it's not entertainment. It's definitely not like sports or anything like that. So I'm definitely learning a lot in terms of, especially in health insurance, like the legal stuff and like the compliance stuff, all these different hoops that I have to go through. And then obviously, it's government regulated, so we have to deal with the government on some certain things. So there's all these different things that I have to deal with. But in terms of like the day to day on my job, um, I think from Pace, again, the whole managing different teams and stuff like that, was helpful, but just in general, like being a college student, and having all these different things going on, like being a part of clubs and being a part of brand marketing team, having like my freelance job and having all these things going on is definitely helping me just because of time management. And that's basically essentially project management, but for yourself. So having done that well, even before college, I was doing that, but even having done that the past 4 years, like specifically, that has definitely helped me in this role. And I think a lot of entry level roles you'll see, there's a lot of coordinator stuff, project coordination, different types of coordinator roles. So being able to speak to all those things you've done in college and how you were involved in a lot of different things, is like extremely helpful, and useful. So I think that's what helped me the most for this role in terms of the last 4 years. There's certain specifics from like classes and stuff that have carried over, but I think in general, it's just kind of like coordinating your life will help you in your coordinator role, I guess. But yeah.
Definitely. Do you have any advice to students who might be entering the job market soon, especially given the way the job market is right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think going back to this whole thing about there's a lot of time. Um, like I think it's okay if you don't know what you really want to do. Like I don't necessarily know or knew what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be in media. And of course I'm not in that right now. Not that I'm particularly worried about that. I mean, it took me a little bit to get over that hump because I thought like my career had ended when I joined this company because like it's in health insurance. I don't want to be in health insurance and all these things. But I think it's important above all else to realize you have a lot of time. And even if after you graduate, if you want to take a month, 2 months, 3 months off just to like figure out what you want to do and or just do what you want, because you're going to be working for somebody or maybe for yourself, I guess, if you want to be self-employed, but you're going to be working for a long time. So it's okay to take 3 months to kind of figure out where you want to go, or however long you want really to figure out where you want to go. Because my friends right now, they graduated in May with me. They don't have jobs, but they're going to be fine. They're getting interviews now. So it's not the end of the world if you don't know what you want to do necessarily. And if you want to take that time, that's perfectly fine too. Because I don't think I could have settled back in May for a place that would have paid me a lot less. And I would have been extremely unhappy. So don't do that to yourself, or don't force yourself to immediately get a job if you start feeling anxious that like you have to figure all this stuff out immediately. I think that's the best piece of advice I could give you. Like I didn't settle for a place that like Group M, for example, which is like one of the biggest marketing companies in the city, was going to give me a non-negotiable salary of $34,000, which I could make at McDonald's for a year. So like I could have settled for that, but I didn't want to do that to myself. So I figured, I might as well be patient and take the time to figure it out. And it ended up paying off in the long run. So I think that's the best piece of advice I could give you is like, don't freak out if you can't find what you're looking for immediately. If you want to take time for yourself to even just like enjoy life for a little bit, that's good too. But even just to take time to like kind of collect yourself and figure out what path you want to go down, I think that's a good idea.
That's all I have for questions, but if first Dr. C and Professor Nankin, if you have anything to ask Brandon, and then we'll open it up to any other questions from the club.
Conrad, you want to add something?
Well, Brandon is so wonderful. He's probably given you everything in short time frame. The only thing I would point out, and I just would ask Brandon, is, and I think you've touched on this, and that is, does taking on all these responsibilities in some way hurt or help you in your classes?
In my classes, I think for me, it helped me. So like, even when I was in high school, I was a student athlete in high school. So it was like I went to school, I was in practice till 7:30, 8 at night. So then I didn't have many hours to do other things other than homework and stuff like that. And I wanted to be successful in all these things. So having that background and then coming to school and knowing that I wanted to be involved in ad club and knowing that I wanted to do brand marketing team and knowing that I wanted to do internships and also knowing that I wanted to be successful in all these things. I don't know, for me, it's motivation to do well when I have all these things going on. So I think personally it helped me. I could see how it might be overwhelming for some if you take on too much. And I know people that have done that before, where they just take on too much on their plate and they can't handle it all. And at that point, it's okay to kind of reassess and, figure out what you need to get rid of to obviously be happier in life. But I think for me, it definitely helped, especially in the long run. Like now, like now I work 9 to 5. I don't have all these other commitments going on, and it's paid off. So in the short term, for those 4 years where I was like very busy and like always go, 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 while it may have been like a little bit stressful, it definitely helped in the long run now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Larry?
I would add, Brandon is not typical. That's why he is speaking to all of you today, because he's not typical. He's an above average, I would say a way above average student. I have had him in several classes and worked with him in ad club and on the brand marketing team. But the lessons he shared with you are the lessons that apply to everybody. Mental toughness, sticking it out, not giving up, at the first difficult obstacle in the road is really important. And we threw a lot at Brandon on the brand marketing team, and he never flinched. He never grimaced. He just said, "I'll get it done," and he got it done.
Yep.
And that attitude is what basically I think has served him well for the last 5 to 6 years, and will serve him well for the next possibly 45 years, because you are all in this economy going to be working for at least 45, if not longer, 45 years. So that means you want to look at the long run and take the long perspective about your future, and as he has done. So I think he's offered a lot of good advice from what I've heard. Good job, Brenna, and in terms of navigating the interview. We have another one on October 7 with someone from Donna Karen. So pass the word that October 7, you'll be hearing from a person from Donna Karen, who is a former student of mine and Professor Nankins. But that's all I want to add. Brenna, you want to manage the questions that I'm sure still exist among some of the people here today? Go ahead.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask for any questions you have.
I'm just going to want to say so long to everyone, and of course, especially to Brandon. Great job on this, as not surprised. So
Thank you.
I got to run to school. So
all right.
I'll see some of you later. Okay.
Yep.
Bye.
Does anyone have any questions?
We have a question in the chat, and this is someone who's looking to be in the graphic design and film production field. And his question is, what resources do you recommend for networking and job applications?
Okay, so I think your best asset right now in terms of networking is this club. Like I said, there's a lot of different people in this club that have a lot of different backgrounds. And obviously I found someone that was in media, so I guess it makes sense. Obviously they're in their ad club, so it makes sense that they're in media. But you'd be surprised, obviously, who's in this club that would have different backgrounds. Like I came in with a graphic design and film kind of background. So I would talk to like the creative, I guess you guys have a creative director, right? So I would talk to like the creative director and just see who they might know, because they might know people that are in the creative scene at Pace. Pace has a lot of people in there that come from a wide array of backgrounds and have a wide array of experiences. Even on brand marketing team, we interacted a lot with like the film department, just to like shoot commercials and stuff like that. So I have some connections through there. But yeah, I would say your biggest connection is like clubs like this, or just classes in general where you can talk to people. Outside of that, I think for me, the go-tos for like figuring out where to apply for places was like LinkedIn and Indeed, and then I would also Google. So Google, for me, I don't know about, I guess this would work for graphic design too. So if you Google like graphic design jobs NYC, Google will aggregate all the different job postings from all the different sites. You can kind of sift through those, and I would set up alerts for myself either every like week or every day. And I would get the new ones in my inbox. So that's how I would kind of sift through the different jobs that were being posted, because there's a lot of different sites. But I mean, at the end of the day, my go-tos were like LinkedIn, Indeed, and Google. But yeah, I think, or I hope that answers your question about the connections and networking thing. Most of my connections were through things like Ad Club or brand marketing team specifically later on. But yeah.
Cool. Are there any other questions, Nicole?
No, that was just the one.
Okay. If anyone else has anything they're interested in, Brandon's pretty much an open book when it comes to answering things for like advice. So ask away if you have anything you're curious about.
For your current job, have they done a lot of on-the-job training, or has it been mostly like self-propelled learning?
That's a great question. So every interview I ever went in, the main question I would ask is what the training was like. Whether it was, like you said, on the job, or if it was like a thing that they, like a program that they had. Because I know at Starcom, when I was interning there, they actually, when they had new hires, they would send them away to their secondary office to have like a full done like training session with all the new hires. And then there's obviously other internships like Atlantic where it was like all on the job. So for this place specifically, I had my like typical orientation day and orientation session where they talked to me about, typical things or whatever. But after that, I would say it was more on the job training, but this company has been, or my team specifically has been very good in a sense that my boss has set up meetings with every single team within the company, and I've met everybody from the CMO down. And I've also had individual like sessions or meetings with specific people to go over the different tools that I've had to use. So the girl I work with on nearly every project has been able to sit down with me and go through like how our project management system works, who the different people to contact are. So it's been like individualized training, but it's been like on the job. It hasn't been like an official program. But it's definitely a question I would ask at any interview you go into, because to me, at least for an entry level, it's a little bit scary when a company's like, we don't really have the time to train you. They kind of want you to know everything. That's a little bit of a red flag for me. That's why I always asked. But yeah, that's how the training has been at Emblem.
How has the like work from home situation been, and like learning how to do a new job from home?
So I think being a new person, it's been harder. I think if I was in the office interacting with people every day, it would be a lot easier. But as much as my team is very good at like trying to interact with me and make sure I'm on the same page as them and make sure I'm included in everything, because they know that onboarding during a pandemic is hard, it's definitely been a little bit more difficult in the sense that there are definitely slow times when I'm here kind of just like twiddling my thumbs in a sense, or that I'm not sure what I should be doing, because it's not as easy to kind of like walk over to your boss and be like, hey, can I help you out with something? So it's like I'm missing that. But at the same time, I'm saving like a ton of money not commuting and stuff like that. So there's that benefit. Also just like working from home is, I don't know, it's more comfortable, I guess. But other than that, the only downside is that like you can't like get up and like walk across the room and be like, hey, do you need help with this? Or like, hey, could you help me with that? Like that's the only like those easy interactions I'm missing. Everything else is basically a positive, I think.
Cool. Does anyone else have any questions?
I want to add one other thing to what Brandon said about in response to the graphics question. You all need to build a portfolio. If you're into graphics, you need to start using your classes that you're taking and looking for opportunities to create graphic representations, graphic material that you can then, show prospective employers. Your classes are a good opportunity to do that. The Ad Club or Puma or other clubs could be good opportunities to do that. If you make it into the brand marketing team and you're in the creative department, that'll be a good opportunity for you. In other words, if you want a career in graphic design, you're going to need to have what we call a book or a portfolio, and you got to start now in building it. You can't wait till May of graduation date and then start to put it together. It's probably too late by then. Some students take some elective courses at PACE to do it as well. Some take courses outside of PACE that are available certainly in the New York area or online, where you can create graphic materials that would show you've got these skills, right? But you should start on it now so you're not scurrying around last month of college trying to put it together. That's what I would tell you. Get to know if graphics is what you're interested in, get to know your professors who teach those courses. If advertising and marketing is what you're interested in, get to know your professors. You can get a 3.9 GPA, but if your professor doesn't know you, he or she is not writing a letter of recommendation, right? You've got to get to know your professors. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
Brent, I'm going to sign off as well. You did a great job navigating.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You're going to put this up on Facebook at some point, right? Along with the Paul Wallace interview.
Yes.
Okay. Everyone have a good day. Take care.
You too.
All right, bye.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
I mean, I had just a quick question. So just to clarify, like, did you have any connections at EmblemHealth before you joined or no?
Nope, I didn't know anybody at EmblemHealth. I don't think there was even, I'm sure they've hired from PACE, but I didn't look into if that's something you can do, is like if you're looking at a company, you can look into if PACE alumni work there and reach out to them. I didn't do that. And no, I didn't know anyone that worked here. I kind of just applied. I had seen the job posting. Again, I was like monitoring these job sites. So like as soon as it was posted, like I applied. And then the interview process went pretty quickly. But yeah, I didn't know anybody there ahead of time.
Anything else? I'm also going to leave Brandon's PACE email still works, so I'm going to leave that. So if you have any questions that you want to send to him, if you want to reach out to him, have a virtual coffee date with him to get to know him better, you can definitely just reach out to him. So I just sent that in the chat, and then our next meeting will be October 7th. And as Dr. C mentioned, it's with a PACE alumni who's now at Donna Care in New York. So it'll be looking more into like fashion marketing, which will be interesting. But yeah, thank you so much, Brandon, for doing this and taking the time out of your work day to
No worries.
give us some advice.
No problem.
But with that, I think you guys have a great day.